2.
From monsters and ghosts to otherworldly beings, join the explorers as they venture into the darkest realms, seeking the truth to what goes bump in the night.
Welcome to Explorers, Seekers of the Truth. Tonight, as always, I am joined by my best friend and co-host, Les Sinkavich. How are you doing this evening, Les?
I am doing fantastic, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. Long
That's
week at
good.
work, but, it's finally over.
Yeah, how about that? How about that?
Yeah, 4:30 a.m. every day this week until, 9, 10 o'clock at night until I get done with all my other stuff.
Ew, that's no fun.
Yeah,
It's well, not. Hey, I would like to thank you because I know you had posted, but I just want to let everybody out there know that this past weekend I actually got to spend some time with my brother from another mother from Virginia. He came up and spent the night with us on Friday, he and his wife, and although it was a little hectic, at some points, all in all, it was a great weekend. So you and I snuck out as often as we could to spend, some bro bonding time, and it was nice. So I
it was
definitely
definitely
thank you, for coming up.
well. Yeah, thank you guys for having us up and all.
Mhm.
It was definitely interesting because some of those areas that we were driving around, kind of putting them into like um, like a mental map of where they hook up to the old property and stuff like that, and
Yep.
kind of seeing the different terrain and stuff like that we, hopefully we'll get some chances to hike out on and check out. And also that little cemetery was pretty interesting.
Yeah. There is a little. I don't know how old it is. I would imagine it's at least 100 years old. There's a small cemetery outside of the town where I live, and there's lore, like urban legend lore, that's connected to it. Where if you climb to the top of the flagpole that's in the middle of the cemetery and look down, you look into this portal to hell, and it's supposedly haunted by a demon, and it follows you around out there, and I guess you see it through this portal or whatever. And that was a place where in a previous group we got an interesting photograph. I'm still trying to find it, but I'm trying to get that, but I have not had any luck. But anyways, it's a spot that we checked out, and it's a spot that hopefully this summer we're going to be able to get out to. And like Chad had said as well, in kind of going along with tonight's topic, there's some other areas that we are hiking out to and going to be checking out this summer for some potential Bigfoot research. So looking forward to that.
I thought you said something about Taco Bell, and every time I eat that, I see a demon in a hole.
It's like Scary Movie when they were mocking The Ring, and it was the dude taking a dump and looking up out of the toilet. Oh yeah, good times. So go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
I was going to say the funniest thing is we can reference movies and comedy bits that are so obscure at times that I don't even think like we realize how obscure they are. Like when we were talking about the Adam Sandler stuff in the car. I haven't heard that bit in probably 15 years.
But
yet
classic.
You knew almost every piece of it. And as soon as you started doing it, I remembered it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I swear to God, if I knew important information as well as I knew nonsensical pop culture references, I'd be the next Einstein, I swear. But anyway, I think we should do our usual agenda.
Yeah, I think you need to tell the audience where they can reach us at.
That's true. You can find us at our website, www.explorersgroup.com. There you could look at some of the evidence we found in both the paranormal and cryptozoological fields. And hopefully we're going to get some new stuff up there after this summer. That would be great if we could pull that off. You could see some archive shows there. There's links to our YouTube channel off of that page. So go to the live shows link on our website and then go to our YouTube channel and be so kind, subscribe, and hit the notification for the new ones. We are on Twitter at Explorers Group, on Facebook, facebook.com/Explorers Group, and we are on Instagram with /Explorers Group. So, and we're also on iTunes. So if you go to iTunes, you actually have to search Explorers Seekers of the Truth. You'll find our channel. You can subscribe and take us with us wherever you go. It's like we never leave you. So, and that's that. I think I covered all the bases, right?
I kind of stopped paying attention.
Thank you.
Sorry,
So-
I know where all those links are. So
Yeah. So you don't need to worry about it, right?
no, if it worst comes to worst, if you need to find any of our links, just go to our website. They're all there.
Yeah, pretty much
So-
everything, and to all of our social channels too is on the site.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, this week the news is brought to you by our good friends at Beast of Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Our dear friend Andy McGrath has, he has his podcast out. His website is up. Les, do you have the little banner with the website for us, or no?
I don't know, but
Okay.
it's www.beastsofbritain.com, and you could go and check that out.
Yep. The funny thing was, I was looking before the show while I was eating, and I was on Flipbook, and I'm flipping through. I have like a paranormal, cryptozoology, all these different like little books that you can just like flip through, and it just brings up news articles and stuff like that. And I'm flipping. I'm probably about the fourth one in, and I look, and it's like Sasquatch Chronicles, and it's Beast of Britain. Andy McGrath joins us, and I'm like, our little buddy.
Yeah, you had to give it a listen.
Yeah. So, there's been a photo of an extremely rare blonde zebra photographed in the wild. So, just to give you a little information on this, there's an extremely rare zebra with partial albinoism spotted near a watering hole in a valley in the Serengeti National Park located in Tanzania. Now, this is probably the first photo. It's actually, it is the first photo of this blonde zebra. So there's been rumors and folklore about the existence of this blonde zebra, and they finally got a picture of it while it was having some water.
You lose your place.
No, I enjoy dead air.
Oh yeah,
it's
so comfortable. It's so comfortable, isn't it? No, well, part of what this blonde zebra kind of leads into part of what we're going to be talking about in the show tonight. So there's well, you'll find out. Yeah. So what's the next little topic that we could get into? I guess kind of part of the oddities of the week, if you will.
Okay, well, there were 4 teeth that were found in a cave in Tongzhen County of southern China that do not fit into the evolutionary family tree of humans.
Interesting.
The teeth are approximately 200,000 years old. They were found on a cave floor in 1972 and in 1983. They were originally labeled belonging to Homo erectus. Further testing indicated that the teeth do not exactly fit in with the ancient human ancestor. So now they're kind of trying to develop a little bit more on these teeth. And also, there's been some stuff circulating more recently with the possibility that the current humans don't necessarily all come from Africa. They're actually finding some evidence that mankind may have actually developed in Europe and migrated south at some points. And it kind of goes back. I always have this joke with my one friend. My family was one of those families that kind of like strolled out, started heading north. It got so cold. They're like, okay, let's go back a little bit where it was slightly warmer, but not hot and not too cold that we freeze to death. And that's where they settled. Other people's family, got all the way up there and they're like, it's too cold. Go back. And then there's the Vikings who got up there and went, yeah, this ain't that bad.
Yeah, this is nice.
Yeah. So, there's some different theories out there on human evolution, but like these full kind of it's amazing. They were found in 72 and 83. We're in 2019 and testing's finally, being done where it's showing that these teeth aren't exactly what they thought they were. So it's one of those things where science kind of just threw a label on them, said, they can't be anything but Homo erectus, and shelf somewhere in a museum. And somebody probably kind of sitting there looking at them one day is like, that doesn't quite look like it's supposed to. And they finally started doing some testing, probably got some funding. And now, hopefully, being that it is in southern China, hopefully some of the information will get released to academics and hopefully then eventually to all of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting that you said 2,000 years ago.
200,000 years ago.
Oh, I thought you said 2,000 years ago. I'm like, wow. So they were really living alongside modern humans if it was only 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, now this was 200,000 years ago.
Okay, all right. And it was only the teeth that they found as the remains. There was no other skeletal remains?
Not that they had listed in the story. Now, of course, like I said, these were found in 72 and then another set were found in 83.
Mm-hmm.
So if there were bones found at that point, they may still be somewhere in a warehouse or in some, museum that not necessarily connected to those teeth, because it's one of those, we found all this stuff and, these teeth are teeth, they're Homo erectus, throw them in here. And, we need a piece of a skull to demonstrate, the representation of the thickness of their skull. So let's put this in some museum somewhere else. And so, it's weird. In China, they only seem to ever find teeth.
Yeah. There's no other skeletal remain other than teeth, which I know a lot of like porcupine in North America would eat bones and antlers and stuff like that to get the calcium and whatnot out of the bone. But I would assume then there would be other kind of scavenging creatures in China that would do the same. I don't know if there's, I guess I would assume China has some sort of a porcupine or other kind of a similar creature that would rely on that, calcium deposits. And because it's funny how it's all like drugged back into a cave and then just the teeth are left. Because I guess they couldn't break down the teeth because they're more dense than regular bone.
Yeah, I mean, but think about like when you watch something eat,
Mm-hmm.
like, an animal eat or something like that, there's always little pieces, trace evidence, little fragments of the meal left over.
True.
So I guess teeth are more noticeable than a, quarter-inch little fragment of bone. So without sitting there sifting through every inch of dirt, they're probably not finding that stuff or looking for it.
That's true, and yeah, it's more distinguishable because like you're saying, I mean, a little tiny bone particle or fragment isn't going to be, it's not going to catch your eye like, oh, hey, that's a tooth, I mean, you're not going to be like, oh, that's a little bone chunk, you're probably just going to think it's some random debris. Now, granted, scientists are have a more trained eye than most common people, but still. So now that we covered some of the strange news that's been circulating the internet, let's get to tonight's topic. Now, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier or not, but tonight is episode 44. And what we're going to be talking about is Bigfoot in Western Pennsylvania. Just not in its entirety, because there's a lot out there. We found a couple of stories that we found were interesting. So we're going to talk about those and we're going to do some breakdowns, and we're not going to say that it's true. Oops, hold on 1 second. Sorry, my phone's going off. God, it scared the crap out of me. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
You can? Okay, let me turn it on. Let me unplug it. And that's the problem, ladies and gentlemen, when you use your phone through the mixer. If you don't unplug it, you're going to get everything. But what was I saying?
Huh? I don't know if it was coming through the mixer or just from the microphone picking it up.
Oh, maybe
it wasn't super loud, but I could hear it.
Well, I unplugged it anyway just to be safe.
Yeah, you were done talking. I was letting you sit there in silence for a second, just kind of keep that anxiety thing.
Oh, I'm not anxious about it. No, we were talking about it's episode 44, Bigfoot in Western Pennsylvania. So that's where we left off. And the collection that we have is just touching on this topic. There's a whole lot more out there. And part of another show that we're going to be doing is kind of bridging between two oddities in the Western Pennsylvania area. But we'll talk about that later. So, Chad,
Yeah.
pass it back to you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, just to guys kind of give you all a reference point of the area of Pennsylvania we're talking about. I know not everybody that listens is from Pennsylvania or has even been there. This would be the area of the state out towards like Pittsburgh. It would be the Allegheny Forest and like the now famous Chestnut Ridge area, which if you haven't seen that documentary, that's a very interesting, documentary to watch or give it a listen to at least.
Mhm. Yeah, you can find that on Amazon Prime if you have an Amazon Fire Stick. You can check it out. I think it's on Netflix too. I think Netflix has some of that stuff, but I could be wrong. But I know Amazon. Amazon, you can find it.
I think Tubi has it also.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's where I watched it.
Yeah, and I believe it was produced by Small Town Monsters, which they have
Yes.
they have a slew of really great documentaries on
Yeah.
the unknown. So I guess we'll go to the first story, and I guess I'll take that one since I was preoccupied with writing back in the comments section. So on September 27th, 1973, two girls were standing outside in Beaver County, Pennsylvania at 9:30 p.m. when an 8-foot tall being covered with white fur and with red glowing eyes ran into the woods nearby. The humanoid was carrying a large glowing orb in its hand, which is kind of strange, and the girls ran off hysterically into their house. The father of one of the girls then went into the woods in search of the creature and stayed there for over an hour. That same year, a glowing orb lands near Uniontown, Pennsylvania, and two Bigfoot creatures are observed in the pasture at the same time. A woman fires her shotgun at a Bigfoot creature only a few feet away, and it disappears out of sight. At about the same time, a luminous object hovered over the nearby woods. So that's kind of a whole cluster of strangeness.
Yeah. I think it was something I listened to years ago with like Stan Gordon,
Mhm.
and he had actually referenced that from basically about 1970 to about 1976, Pennsylvania was actually the leading UFO and Bigfoot sighting area in America.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those stories actually kind of cross over each other at certain points. Like this, the glowing object that he was holding. Another one with that one in Uniontown where it's hovering over the woods or the field. And you got to also think about like when they say UFO, it does not necessarily mean alien spaceship. It just means unidentified flying object. It's not, no one's saying it was a UFO and alien spacecraft. They're just saying there was a light that was seen hovering over these woods.
Right.
Now, of course, that becomes a UFO. If you don't know what it is, it becomes a UFO.
Mm-hmm. An unidentified flying object.
Yeah.
Just thought I would say that.
Again. Now that you're drinking water, I spit it out while we're doing this.
What's that? What did you say?
I said, now that you're drinking water, I'm going to try to make you actually spit it out while we're doing the show.
That's so kind of you.
That's always my goals with people.
To make
yeah. Now, in the 1970s, there was another white Bigfoot spotted. Now, this time it was in Blakesley, Pennsylvania. Blakesley would be the area near Pocono Speedway for the fans and followers that kind of follow NASCAR. That's the Pocono Raceways and right around Blakesley. Mm-hmm. And this comes from the 1970s. According to eyewitness Annette B., the creature she saw was in 1970, which stood between 6 and 7 foot tall with a broad chest, a long neck, and a coat of dirty white fur. Mm-hmm. Now, she went on to describe the face. Its eyes were dark, spaced far apart. Hair covered the lower half of the face. There was a pinkish skin around the eyes and forehead. Its hair looked like it was a little long on the head and kind of hanging over the forehead like bangs.
Interesting. Hmm.
Now, yeah, now this is not Western Pennsylvania, but I thought it was kind of interesting. 73, there's a sighting out in Western Pennsylvania of a, whitish Bigfoot.
Right,
Now
right.
you're on the opposite end of the state. And when I say opposite end, it's legitimately the almost polar opposite end of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Blakesley's only
There is,
like almost an hour from me, or about just a few minutes.
yeah, I was gonna say like it's about 45 minutes to an hour from you.
Yeah.
Actually used to drive right by your house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On the way
Actually
out.
both of your houses.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. And funny, well, not funny, but coincidentally, and I'm sure I mentioned this in one of our previous shows, but a relative of my wife's had talked to me the one time, and she told me that she was working, I want to say, out towards Mountaintop, Pennsylvania, which is literally minutes from my house. um she was leaving, she was working in a warehouse or a factory, one of the two, and she was going out for her lunch, and she worked the night shift, so when she was going out it was pitch black outside, and she said when she was leaving the parking lot, across the street was an open field, and she said she was looking, checking the road, the road for traffic, and caught out of the corner of her eyes in the reflecting from the headlights was this large white hair covered creature. And she said it just took off running across the field. And I said, well, do you think it could have been a person in a suit or anything like that? She's like, well, the way this thing took off running, and I guess it was kind of it was an open area, but it had a lot of like uh low undergrowth kind of coming up, like
Yeah.
brush, a lot of brush. Yeah. So for a person to run through there regularly would be difficult. And a person in a suit that's going to get caught up on everything would be even more difficult. And she said the way it just took off across that, kind of gnarly field, she said, I don't think it was a person because it moved incredibly fast. So it's kind of interesting how Pennsylvania and even Ohio, especially Eastern Ohio, has had reports on an all white Bigfoot creature. And I actually have a very short YouTube clip. Do you want me to play that?
Yeah, I guess.
All right,
Wouldn't hurt.
I'll try and bring that up and share the screen here. It's pretty short, so let me see if I could
That's what
remember how.
she said.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Let's see if I could share the screen. Sorry, it's been a while since I used this technology, so bear with me. Oh shit. There we go. All right. Can you see the screen? Chad?
Yeah, I can see it. Nothing's playing.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
That gets me every time. Okay, let me get this off the screen. Okay, let me turn let me turn the video off. All right. So yeah, that one. I don't know how I really feel about that. I mean, it's been circulating around. I don't know if it's been really looked into that much, because I mean it's pretty much obviously a hoax. I mean, you can see right before it takes off the kind of a flap underneath the neck area where like the mask would lay on top of the suit fabric, and it takes off. No eye shine,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of weird. Because I mean, I don't know if that was night vision. It looked like it was like that, like more of a sepia kind of filter overlay on top of it. So I don't know if they were trying to mimic night vision. But even still, if you're trying to photograph it, uh, with just a normal flashlight and a regular camera. And when the light pops up, it's still going to give off some sort of reflection. Furthermore, it's all white. You're shining the light right in its face. You're going to see more of the eyes. There was no blinking when the light hit its face. When he was approaching it, the breathing was muffled, so it sounded like somebody trying to create a deeper breathy sound with a mask on. You know what I mean? And then just all you have to do is a simple search online and you could find, look at this. That I did hardly any kind of searching online. I found that. I'm like, wow, that's very, very close to what was in that video. Now, obviously it's not identical, but I mean, it's not hard to find a mask, like that to just throw on and run through the woods.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I also like the lack of response from the person videotaping.
yeah, yeah.
Like you run into even when we go out looking for stuff
Mm-hmm.
and you stumble upon it, you're still slightly startled.
Mm-hmm.
You have some kind of response, and it wouldn't be. It almost reminds me, and my love for bad B level paranormal sci-fi movies.
I
It
do.
it almost reminds me of something that was shot for one of them, like just some bad B movie that
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
never got used, it got cut out, because it's like so, shaky camera, walking, all of a sudden, oh, and it's like, and takes off running.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's not like I was expecting like a Jamie Lee Curtis, scream queen kind of reaction, but there was what did it? There was nothing. I mean, you're gonna be like, oh, there's gonna be something. You know what I mean? There was nothing, and it was like a cheesy turn and run.
Yeah. You think about it, even like when you're walking around and you stumble, like you're out in the yard and a bird kind of gets a little too close to you.
Mm-hmm.
You make more noise than that. You have a more, kind of like,
Yeah, you have a reaction. I mean, when he was holding the camera didn't even jerk back. In fact, it looked like the camera focused in even more still. You know what I mean? Almost just to get that. And the creature reacted.
Yeah.
Which again makes me kind of think it was staged, you know?
And if I know anything about bad B movies, is it's always they're filming and they always never take notice to the distortion on the camera or an object moving on its own or the creature standing there looking at them until it decides to move away. So I just kind of have a feeling that was something shot for a movie and just kind of hit the cutting room floor. Maybe the movie just never got finished. Maybe it was some kind of really cheesy low end movie that they were trying to put together and a couple people and, oh, well, we could get some publicity at least for this clip or something, threw it out online, said, oh, it's a Bigfoot we discovered while walking in the woods.
Right.
I mean, I'm no expert. I'm pretty good with bad B horror and paranormal movies. So I've watched a lot of those horrible Bigfoot movies. So I could see it being something from a movie.
I'm telling you, you and Leslie would get along swimmingly. Every time she used to go to the video store, and I know I said this before, she would always come back with the worst B movie. And I'm like, why? Why did you rent this? Oh God.
I don't know. I think I have a weird fascination with how bad could it possibly be.
Yeah, and then you're kind of intrigued just to see how bad it is.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, by the time I get through most of those movies, I'm kind of sit there and I'm kind of like, well, that part of the movie wasn't terrible. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll tell you about one. I'll be like, it's not a great movie, but it's not terrible.
Yeah. So watch it if you don't care if you're going to fall asleep through it is usually what you get at.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, I fall asleep during a lot of them, but you know.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple of comments that came in that are worth mentioning. One OS says the way it moves, it's very fast. It was a quick movement, but I mean, honestly, even I could recreate that, and I'm a fat ass. You know what I mean? I don't think it was out of the realm of a person to just dart out of the way. I really don't think anything in this puts up any kind of a red flag for me to be like, oh, we need to investigate this further. I mean, there were too many things, in my opinion, that turned me off from feeling any kind of truth related to that.
Yeah. Actually, something that Moon Joey had commented about is, if Bigfoot is an actual animal, why would its fur be white? It doesn't make sense with, its surroundings. Well, that actually brings me to my next point on this.
Such a beautiful segue, Joey.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of, with all these kind of white Bigfoot or off-colored Bigfoot stories, I started to do a little research in albinoism in nature. And this is just a couple stats and stuff that I found. In humans, for example, about 1 in 70 people carry a recessive gene for albinism. And that's about 1 in 20,000 humans are albino. Now, at least 300 species of animals in North America have albino individuals. In like a state like Missouri, people have photographed or witnessed turtles, catfish, salamander, deer, frogs, snakes, bluebirds, and raccoons that all are albino.
Yeah.
I have personally witnessed albino deer and piebald deer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've never necessarily seen a catfish, albino catfish. I've heard about them. You could probably Google it and find a few photos.
They have Met Cabela's in the live fish
Oh
pond.
yeah, that's right. They do.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in so long that I've actually seen catfish then.
Yeah.
And turtles and salamanders, I don't really kind of go looking for them. I'm sure I've seen frogs that are or have, the piebald traits or albino traits. Now, there are some researchers working with mammals estimate that true albino occurs in 1 in 10,000 births. Some of the like conservation department that have like the fish hatcheries have seen albino catfish produce as frequently as 1 in 20,000.
And for fish, I mean, that's not a real high number, you know what I mean? Because fish reproduce, there's so many.
Would that be a drop in the bucket?
Oh, yes, it would.
And some researchers working with birds found that albinism occurs in 17 out of 30,000 individuals. I don't know why they had to do that one. Basically, that number is 1 out of every 1,764 birds.
To be precise.
Yeah, I don't know why they had to do 17 out of 30,000. Like everybody else would say 1 out of 20,000, 1 out of 30,000. No, let's say 17 out of 30,000.
I know, so stupid.
Now, normal or random breeding usually, decreases the chance of albino offspring. Inbreeding among small isolated populations or closely related individuals can increase the chances of albinoism. Even among humans, albinism rates are vary geographically, like with geographic locations. And there are some areas that actually have extremely high rates of albinoism.
Yeah.
Like,
go ahead. Sorry.
Like in the city of Lynchburg, there are almost whole herds, small herds, they're in a city, of albino or piebald deer.
Interesting.
So
it's almost out in like that isolated population increases that recessive gene to be more in the forefront.
Yeah, they're kind of isolated out in a more woody part of town. But it's it's woody in this part of town, but then there's long stretches of open, housing developed areas. So they're not traveling out of those areas as frequent. So it's definitely a smaller isolated population, but that's just in the 11th largest city in Virginia. That doesn't, say much, that's in a city even. So what are some of these pockets elsewhere going to be like?
Exactly. Well, kind of on the opposite end of that, excuse me. And I was telling you, I don't know if I said it on the show or not, but I know I was telling you about it. I go for a drive around the countryside when I drop the kids off at school before I come back and go to work. I was right outside of town, big open area, lots of forest, lots of fields too. And I saw probably about 30 turkeys in this flock. And right smack dab in the middle of it was this gorgeous albino turkey, all white, red head. Like it was really kind of cool to see. And as much as I wanted to try and stop and get a picture, I couldn't. And they were too far away with my cell phone. But it was really cool to see that, because I was like, wow, what are the odds of seeing, an albino turkey? But I seem to see animals and creatures with albinism more frequently anymore than I did in past years. I don't know if there's anything to do with that or not, but it is kind of weird how I'm seeing them more frequently. But that's kind of like, there's this population that isn't in a controlled area, that is, has hundreds and hundreds of acres to roam, and boom, I happen upon a albino. You know what I mean? It could happen anywhere.
Well,
So,
yeah, you were sorry,
no,
but
no, 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 go.
you were saying about that, like, seeing them more frequently. I remember as a kid, you always heard stories of the albino deer or
Mhm.
the, albino this or that would be running around in this, area of woods.
Mm-hmm.
And you always kind of thought like, oh yeah, right, albino deer, I believe you. Yeah, sure. And now you're starting to actually see them more frequently. Now, like we were saying, like 1 in 20,000 is the kind of scientific guess on, or estimate on, the frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe we're seeing those 1 in 20,000 just luckily,
Mm-hmm.
or, it's becoming a little more prevalent due to, like the expansion of man, where we're developing areas that maybe used to be the throughways for like turkey or deer to kind of, move from this valley to this, other side of the valley, or across, know how we develop, especially up your way, like around the lakes and rivers and stuff like that. Everybody seems to build houses and you start clearing out the woods. So is that maybe cutting off these populations at times?
That's true too. Or we're just getting further and further into isolated areas where maybe it's more common than you really think.
Yeah. I actually shared, Moon Joey said about social media has the albino moose and giraffe. I actually just shared on our Twitter earlier the first known video of an albino whale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's beautiful. I think it's like a humpback whale. I didn't really study up close on what it was, but I mean, it is a beautiful, you can actually see it through the blue water. Like you can see whales through the water naturally, but it's like this white, and all of a sudden it just breaks the surface and it's solid white. So if you're on our Twitter, you can check it out. But yeah, I mean, with social media, especially, we're seeing a lot more of these photos and all of albino creatures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a post there too. Steven says there's a piebald deer outside of the town that I live in just a couple weeks ago. So they're all around. They're all around. It's, but the point of this is there was a comment. I think Gary had made the comment about, oh, it's not just white. Bigfoot are all different colors. That's kind of what we're getting at. Is, I mean, yes, the creatures are going to be more adapted to their environment. So their coat or fur or pattern, whatever, is going to be evolved to blend in with their surroundings and better adapt to the surroundings for hunting and survival and all that stuff. But
yeah,
go ahead.
well, no, I was kind of agreeing with you on that, and I kind of had a point to add to it as you went on. If you were going to,
I was just going to bring up about the bears, but if you wanted to go and say your part, you go ahead.
well, yeah, we're the standard colors for Bigfoot, if they do exist, would be environmentally sound. They wouldn't be bright orange. They would be browns, blacks, dark colors, maybe multicolored fur and spots.
Like a rusty.
Yeah. Well, think about it. We're seeing like albino deer, and what we're like, kind of the point of why I was researching the albinoism part of it is if the breeding populations are being cut off from each other, the the genetic pool is shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
Areas with, closer breeding because of the lack of availability to get to other, if they live in tribes, troops, groups, whatever you want to consider it, crashes. I'm using all the different names for animal groups. A crash is actually a group of rhinoceros, so y'all know.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
So, is it maybe these albinos are happening because they are getting cut off from other groups and they're breeding closer and closer, and that's why we're getting these stories every so often, not a constant flow of white Bigfoot, white Bigfoot, white Bigfoot, but you're getting those 1970s, 1973, 1970, just that random one every so often.
Right. And it could be the same one too, because I mean, for all we know, we don't know the lifespan of these creatures. I mean, say they last 50 years.
Yeah. Oh, we don't know the territorial of, nature of them either. Like a bear will have like, what is it, 150-mile territory?
Yeah, at least. Yeah. Yeah. They have acres in there and miles, like you said. Yeah. Within their territory. And going back to the bear, like we were saying before, the black bear is actually one of North America's most colorful creature. They come in color. If I could talk, they come in several color phases. Like the black bear, they come in black, obviously, and that's what everybody's accustomed to. So they think, oh well, a black bear is black; they're all black. But no, they're black, they're brown, they're cinnamon, they're blonde, they're bluish gray, like a silvery color, and they're even white. And the Native American cultures, they're the spirit bear. So all throughout North America is this variation. It's not singled out to any geographic location. It's not like South America or Southern U.S. has this color or the Northeast has this. It's all throughout. So again, when people say, oh, I saw this Bigfoot and it was like a rusty red color, or I saw a Bigfoot and it was a brown, or it was a this or that, and it couldn't have been a bear, it was brown. So and I'm in Pennsylvania, so there's no grizzly bear around here, there's no brown bear around here. Well, like I said, the black bear has all these different variations in its coat. So again, is this just a case of misidentification?
Could be. I've seen just in a small pocket, up a little bit from where you live, in a housing community. It's a private gated community that's kind of sits back in the woods. I have seen black bear that were solid black. I've seen black bear with like the cinnamony color around their snouts and black the rest of their body. I've seen them more on the gray, like brown and grayish kind of scales. Now, I didn't, sit around long enough to get acquainted with each bear that I saw, but there were several that, kind of just had those different, color characteristics to them. And that was in a maybe 5 square mile housing area, so that's just in that one little, like I said, like 5 square miles, there were so many variants on black bear. So, yeah, and I mean white bear, it's an albino.
Yeah.
Well,
actually, the white black bear is not albino because it doesn't have the pink nose or the red eyes. It's just a white coat. It still has the black eyes and the black nose. Yeah, it almost looks like a polar bear, like a small polar bear, but it's just white.
I think we're missing a big theory on all this.
What's that?
The Yeti takes vacations in the woods of Pennsylvania.
That's true. Yeah. He makes that trek all the way from the Himalaya.
Yeah, he gets a private plane, flies over, drops into one of those little airports up in the mountain, goes out, strolls around, meets up with his American cousins, hangs out for a few months, gets back on his private plane, ends up landing in Nepal, refreshed, ready to walk around and scare Sherpas.
Refreshed. I'm gonna go with that. I that's the new theory. That's the latest and greatest Charlesworth theory. That beats out the Jotlov Pass.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't prove it, but it's amazing. I throw out the Jotlov Pass theory, and all of a sudden they reopen the investigation.
That is true. That is a coincidence there, I'd say.
There's no such thing as coincidences when it comes to Charlesworth theories.
That's true. That is true. Unmistakably. So, where are we going next?
Let's talk about that Smethport Township yard footprint.
Okay.
Now, this came to us from the Olean Times Herald from March 14th of 2015. And something made some prints in the snow at a Keating Township residence, but what that something was is a bit of a mystery. Dun, dun, dun. So this story goes on to say, on Friday, Dr. Kent Smith said that he had some marks in his yard and in the nearby field. The marks looked like footprints, only bigger. That just reminds me of the Love Guru.
What?
It looks like, but only smaller.
Yeah, that's right.
Another great movie to reference that nobody will ever like. The Love Guru. What are these two idiots talking about?
They don't appreciate Love Guru like we did.
Yeah, that was probably like right up there with one of the greatest movies ever made that nobody has ever given it its proper credit.
That's right.
Now, it went on to say that although a cleaning lady at the Smith residence on East Valley Road first spotted fresh tracks almost a week ago, several days passed before she told the Smiths of her discovery, probably due to skepticism over such reports. Which I could see if you're working for a doctor. Now, I don't think it ever really mentioned what kind of doctor he is, but I don't think as his cleaning person, you want to be like, Dr. Smith, I saw some footprints out in your yard that are bigger than normal. Hold on. Dr. Smith. Wasn't Dr. Smith the creepy pedophile on Lost in Space?
It might have been.
Anybody out there help me with that one?
Yeah.
But, and it goes on here as, since being informed of the prints, Smith has observed them daily from his home for 5 days and said no new footprints had appeared. Smith, who describes himself as a skeptic about reports of huge human-like creatures, nevertheless said Friday after contacting the error, these look like footprints, but they are so large and far apart.
Well, I actually have a picture. Let me just see if I can find it of this footprint. Let me bring it up. Why is this not moving? Okay. Here's the footprint that Chad's talking about in this report. To me, it looks like a print that has been melted out, but that's just my opinion.
Well, yeah, they did say this was like 5 days after, the cleaning lady initially saw them or something like that, or a week, so there had to be some melting and refreezing and stuff like that.
Because you could kind of see within the center of the footprint where like the initial track was, and the depression started melting out, spreading the snow out, and creating the illusion that it's a bigger track than it actually is. Because I think it says the measurements were 20 inches long by 16 inches wide, and they're 9 feet apart. Now, the space between the stride being 9 feet, I don't know about, I don't know what to say about that, but the footprint itself, to me, it looks like a melt out. And actually and again, I can't see the picture that well. It's just, only so big and you lose detail, but it looks like it could have been a rabbit that was running, because you can kind of see where the hind feet would be in the front and the 4 feet would be in the back as the rabbit runs, it does the stride.
Yeah.
So it almost looks in the center of that where you can kind of see two pads in the front and then the tinier spot in the back. To me, it looks like a rabbit track, but
Yeah.
that's just what I could see from this picture. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, there was a carpenter who had worked for the Smiths on various projects around the home, showed the footprints route that led hundreds of feet from a field across East Valley Road through the Smiths yard, coming very close to the house before heading towards Potato Creek and leading eventually into a nearby wooded area. So it still could be a rabbit. I mean,
yeah.
But
I mean,
looking
if
a
it was
9
running-
foot,
Go ahead.
that 9 foot part though would still kind of throw me off with a rabbit.
Well, I mean, if it was in pursuit, it's going to be taken off like a bat out of hell. So it's going to have that stride distance to get out of the open area into the wooded area. You know what I mean? So it could have been just a rabbit running for its life.
Yeah. Now, the thing I love is like there's never a good picture of these footprints when they're in snow because it always, there's a lot of remelt and refreeze and all that goes along with wintertime. So it's always so hard to, get that good, hey, this is a foot. You can see toes. You can see the heel indent, before you lose the quality with the melt and refreeze process.
Mm-hmm.
That just always kind of bothers me. I wonder now. It doesn't say if there were 2 foot,
like a right and a left.
Yeah, I don't remember reading that.
Yeah, it's not in the write up.
No, it's actually, I'm skimming through this here. It says the single foot. No, it says footprints are consistently 9 foot apart. So prints would indicate the single footprints. See, that was when you say single, it would mean one to me, but footprints would be several. But I guess one footprint is always 9 foot apart. So again, it's one single foot.
Right.
So you're telling
you're tracks in one.
Yeah, you're telling me something big enough to make a footprint on 1 foot isn't heavy enough on the other side of its body to make a similar footprint?
Well, I think what they're saying is it's single, like it's one track every 9 feet, not only 1 foot or like one left foot every 9 feet. You know what I mean? It's like if it were a rabbit, you'd see four prints.
Yeah.
One spot.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Single footprints. So yeah, I get it was kind of just throwing me off there. The English language, even though it is my first language, is always difficult for me when it comes
when
to
the picture only shows one and they're just saying, you know what I mean? Without seeing it all, it's hard to judge, I guess. But
yeah, and of course, like he, measured the depth of the footprints and said they were 5 to 6 inches and there was no new snow. But that doesn't really take into effect the melting of the snow and when it refreezes. And I just keep going back to that. I don't have really much on that.
How deep was the actual snow around it?
Yeah.
Like the impression was 5 to 6 inches deep, but how deep was the snow around it? So if you have an 800-pound creature, that's going to push that snow down almost to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if there were melt out, and you could clearly see from that picture, it's melted out.
Yeah.
So if it's going to be pushed that deep to the ground, you're probably going to start seeing more of the ground underneath it. Whereas in this, you still see a bunch of snow, which makes me think it was a lighter creature that didn't make a deep enough impression. And the 5 to 6 inches, maybe it was only an inch or two on the top, but with all the melt out, it spread and sank, giving the impression a deeper depth, So I don't know. But again, without being there, without physically seeing them, it's hard to make an accurate decision or give an accurate answer. But that's just my way of thinking, I guess. So what's the next one?
Well, I guess we could talk about probably the most famous Pennsylvania photo. I think that's kind of a point of contention for most people.
Are you referring to what people call the Jacob's creature?
Yeah, that would be it.
Okay, all right.
Wow, that was such a segue.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was talking about that photo.
Of the melty footprint.
No, the one you took of me like those French girls in your drawing book.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a real good one. So do you wanna tell everybody about, get them familiar with the Jacobs photo?
Not really.
All right, well, I'll do it, I guess, if you want.
Yeah.
On September 16th in 2007 in Northwest Pennsylvania, on a Bushnell trail camera, it was set in automatic mode with infrared invisible flash. R. Jacobs set this camera trap out. And what he had found were kind of some questionable images. And the time image, let's see what else is. These are kind of bulleted here. So timestamps. I guess they're kind of, people are having a difficult time deciphering what the creature is. Is it a juvenile Bigfoot, which some people claim it is? Or is it a bear cub or a younger bear? I would say probably a yearling to maybe just getting out on its own from, leaving its mother. I guess that is the big question. And what I'll do is I'll bring up these pictures here. I mean, is there anything else that you want to talk about before I bring the pictures up?
No, I think the pictures kind of have to come first, and then we can discuss some of the pieces of, breaking down the photos. And
There we go. All right. So the first one I'll bring up here. This is the first image that was caught on this game cam, this trail cam. Obviously, it was a baited area. So he was probably just trying to scout what kind of deer are around. And in comes this creature. Looks quadrupedal to me, but a lot of people are saying that it was hunched over, but it looks like it's just standing where the ground kind of goes in a bit of an incline. Does look kind of apish, chimpish, but really, really skinny. Then I guess, should we go to picture number 2? Is there anything you want to add to that one?
no, picture number 2 would be fine.
Okay. So picture number 1 does appear to be a little bit more ape-like, but when you go to picture number 2, this to me is more in line with a quadruped creature. You have the flat back foot, the forward turned, the pelvic is forward facing, more like like a quadruped creature. The forearms has the bend more of like a quadrupedal creature. The flap of skin under the arm indicates to me a malnourished quadruped creature, whereas more of a apes and humans have more of a predominant cut in the armpit area. Obviously, you could tell by the skin or the coat that it's patchy. Obviously, some signs of mange or some kind of what do you want to call it? Some kind of
Alopecia.
alopecia. Yeah, kind of like that kind of thing. So yeah, that's picture number 2. I'll take these down quick. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, well, I don't know. On picture number 2, I don't know what it is at all. It just looks like a big blurry thing.
Right. What here, I'm going to bring picture number 2 back up.
Yeah, see, I don't see distinction. Like people, well, I guess it's when people look at this, they say, oh, this is this piece, this is that piece, this is that. And to me, it's like such a poor image that you could sit there with one of those telestrators and draw, like circle and put in like, okay, this is where the head actually is in this photo. And, this is an arm and this is its, neck and this is this. I see a very blurry thing, which if you could go back to the first photo,
Yeah, let me bring that up quick.
with the first photo, I see, distinction. So I can kind of, pick and say, okay, well, this to me looks kind of similar to, a chimp, or this looks, similar to a bear. And like, to me, looking at them, it's very hard. And I've listened to arguments on both sides of the topic, and they make very good points. And then I'm kind of like, I'll listen to the other side of the topic, and they make, rational good points also. And they can each one can kind of debunk the other one's thought process on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a scientist, a mathematician, I believe. I'm trying to look here in my notes. I had found a little thing. Well, actually, he was an English professor in Vermont, was able to apply mathematics to the photo, and his results showed a scientific way to study the photo and strengthen the case that this creature is primate rather than bear.
Mm-hmm.
He focused on the different torso and limb ratios of bears and primates, and the torso and limb ratios seen on this creature in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
And also referenced the ratios of bear cubs as seen in the earlier photo taken by that camera.
Right.
So, there were other bears photographed in that area, so, and it's Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We do have a lot of stories of Bigfoot in Pennsylvania.
But we also do have a lot of bear.
I was going to say, we also have a ton of bears in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania. We also have a lot of those, mangy, conditioned animals that come, through at different times in Pennsylvania. And, you can measure ratios and stuff like that, but you're kind of going off of, an estimated ratio. If you look at 10, look at 10 chimps and you look at 10 bears, you're getting an estimate.
Mm-hmm.
On average, the, forelimb is from the shoulder to the wrist area would be this. And on a bear, it's going to be this. On a primate, it's going to be that. Well, we're looking at maybe 10. Our sample size is 10.
Yeah.
And we're using those numbers, but are we looking at 10 that are that live in a zoo?
Right.
Or some kind of preserve? Are we measuring 10 that are in the wild and, in different terrains and stuff like that? So,
and it all depends on what the age of this thing is too. Because I mean, without being in that area, what are you going to measure for an accurate size comparison to find out the actual size of that creature compared to something? You know what I mean? Were you at the tree? Were they at the tree?
yeah.
There they could use, and there's nothing else really that you could use for an accurate measurement to say, all right, well, this can next to the creature is a foot tall. Well, he's 2 feet, like a foot and a half taller than that can. So that would make it like if it were a bear, it would be at this age or whatever. But to me, like I still go with the mangy bear. Like if you look back at picture number 2 and you look at the back end where the butt is and the hip and the bend in the back, like just that extreme back bend to me just looks very very quadrupedal, very bear like. And I'm gonna bring up.
I have one really quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the shadow?
I don't know. That almost looks like it. Like here, let me hold on. That in the bottom center looks like the trail cam.
Yeah, which would make no sense why the trail cam would be casting a shadow, counting the light source would be in the front of the trail cam.
Yeah, or why would there be unless they had 2 trail cams? Like to me, it's kind of like that looks like a trail cam, like a separate unit.
Yeah, that's always threw me off about that photo is what that dark trail cam shaped object is in the picture.
Yeah. Well, I actually found, and I have more to kind of go along with this, but I actually found a colorized photo, same like the same location, and there's like a little tray of food or whatever. I mean, to me, that looks like a mangy bear going after what's laying down on the ground. Like when I saw it in the black and white, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, well, maybe it could be primate, maybe, I don't know. But after looking at it in color and seeing like the vegetation line back behind the clearing there, you could see it's kind of like on a downhill angle, and you can see kind of like in the background how the it looks like the hill kind of rolls down into like maybe a field or something, like a woodland meadow or something in the back. But that to me definitely has more hallmarks of a mangy bear than a primate in that colorized image. But I have, if you look
Now,
again,
real quick.
do you want me to bring that back up?
No, you can keep it down. But if you notice that black object, when you colorize the photo, isn't there.
Wait, let me go back to it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Now there is a shadow in the center of the picture, but I mean, then again, I mean, this could have been days later. This could have been, you know what I mean? You don't know the time span between.
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But
there is nothing there. You're right. But I mean, the little branch and all that stuff even looks like we're kind of further back in the colorized picture than. Oh no, it's about the same. I don't know. I think it's back a little bit further actually, because if you looked at the first Jacobson photo, it's closer to that branch that's kind of in the center there.
mm-hmm.
So, but point being, if you look at that colorized, I mean, everything lines up, and to me, looking at it colorized looks more bear-like, because I'm going to bring up another picture. So this is picture number 2. And like I said, the back end, you could still kind of like the leg is fully extended, but there's still that bend that would, to me, if this would walk upright, the leg would be straightened, you know. And you can see the stretched out skin on the back. That to me indicates that this animal at one time had more bulk to it, and as it contracted the mange affects the bear in many ways. They get malnourished, they don't eat right, they get it affects every part of their anatomy. So you could see the loose kind of back, almost like elephant looking skin in the back where it's all baggy. Underneath the armpit, the skin is really loose and flappy, and you can kind of see that hard elbow bend like a bear, and the front limb kind of goes, or the front paw goes flat, not like primates usually. We were talking earlier, primates usually have the knuckles down. They don't walk flat-handed. They walk on their knuckles. And again, you could really see the mangy, patchy. You can see the hips, the extreme bend in the spine. And if you look at this picture that I'm about to bring up, God, there's such a lag. This is a mangy bear. And if you look at the ass end of the mangy bear and the little hump up in the back there, you can see like the loose kind of elephanty like skin, the loose skin underneath the arm and everything, just that patchy, mangy skin. And you go back, to me, just looking at that back end where that bump is right at the top of the legs, and then the top bump where the top of the pelvis, the hip would be, to me, that is very, very similar to this bear.
Well, even look at the way the bear's legs are compared to that image. How the one leg's kind of kicked out a little.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looks very similar to the actual photo there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even
like
the
posture-wise.
If you look at the first image where the legs were kind of splayed apart, it looks very similar to this one.
Mm-hmm.
How the one's shortened down and bent and the other one's stretched out.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, that loose skin really sells me, and just the patchy manginess to it, and the way it's just kind of like lumbering over the food source and kind of putting its nose down into it and sniffing it and whatnot. That to me, like, I've seen bear eat at trash dumps and stuff like that. I've seen bear eat, bait that's been put out for deer and all that stuff. And that's very, very much what they look like, where they kind of like just push their head down in it and immerse themselves in it, get the stink on them and all that. And to me, it looks like that's what that creature is doing. Now, I know we were talking before where it looks like it might be a hand because of that stick kind of going through. Like, to me, it looks like the head laying on the ground, but you said it looked like another appendage, like an arm, but wouldn't the head be sticking out in the front a little bit more? And I don't know. It's a shitty picture. It's subjective.
Well,
Go ahead.
There's a little bit more information on the moments leading up to these photos. Several minutes elapse between they had mentioned these bear cubs that were seen in one of the images that they have, and then this, as they say, ape-like animal appearing. So you have bear cubs eating at this mineral lick and salt lick and baited area. And then several minutes later, a juvenile Bigfoot strolls up and starts eating from the same area.
Possibly.
To me, it would sound more like bear behavior. Like, the cubs are up there eating, they move off, the sickly, mangy bear kind of, picking off their leftovers as they move. This one's kind of staying away, so it's not a threat, but it's kind of just following behind. And notice, the smells and stuff like that. Because I've seen bear go into a dumpster, a big trash compactor dumpster, throw garbage bags out of the dumpster, pick one bag in particular, jump out of the dumpster and run off into the woods with that just one bag and leaving the other bags laying on the ground. It's a diaper bag, a bag of human baby diapers. But there was a bear that used to climb in the one dumpster, the compactor, and would throw, legitimately, you would see bags flying out of the compactor. And then you'd see the paws come up and it would pull itself up and it would have a big, white trash bag in its mouth, and it would just take off across the road into the woods and, disappear.
Right.
But it would only take that one bag. I just wanted to tell that story. It really had nothing to do with the point I was making.
Well, no, it goes to show too, and other things where people would say, oh, something rummaged through my garbage and it was selective, it wouldn't be torn everything apart. Not true. No. If you have, paper and plastic or other garbage in one bag that doesn't have any kind of food scent to it, and another bag that has a week's worth of leftovers, well, it's going to go to the bag that has the strongest scent of food. Oh, did I just get kicked out? I don't see my camera on the screen anymore.
I see you. I hear you. Oh, now I don't see or hear you, but now I do.
I don't know. I don't know why it's doing that, but we'll carry on. Well, somebody had commented about the limbs of the creature, and I'm going to bring this up quick.
El Chupacabra.
Yeah, you would think. But this is another bear in Pennsylvania that had mange. And if you look, obviously it's a younger bear, but the limbs are extremely long, real lanky. The neck is long. And that's an extreme case of mange. That thing's almost bald. But the other example that we had, I think, really kind of hit home. This one here, the second picture. This one to me really does look like a mangy bear. But we're going to go a little bit further. Because if you look at a healthy bear, before I get into my other topic, obviously that's a healthier bear. It has more weight on it. So you malnourish it, you get it all patchy like the other one. And look at even the back end of that female bear, how it has that bump and then it goes up to the hip bump. You give it mange, take some of that hair off, take a large percentage of its body weight off. It's exactly what that creature looks like.
Yeah, you look at that female bear's backside.
Yeah, she got that ass bump that don't quit.
Yeah.
So There was another picture that you and I were talking about earlier, and it's this one here where somebody actually did a side-by-side comparison of a chimp and whatever this thing is. And again, it's convincing. It's definitely convincing, but bear usually have that straight leg in the back where they kind of walk straight legged, and the chimp, you can see a more defined bend in the knee. Because if you watch a bear walk, it's almost stiff legged in the back, where the back legs kind of swing side to side, like you were talking about earlier, the legs kick out, they don't really bend. Like they could bend, but they don't really bend when they walk. They kind of kick those legs out almost like a bulldog walking in reverse, how the bulldog kind of has that pigeon leg where it's kind of plump, plump, plump. And the back on the creature has more of an arc down lower, where the primate has more of a straightened back, and when it does bend, it curls up more at the shoulders. It's convincing. I mean, it does look like it could be that, but again, look at the armpit of the ape. Now, obviously, the ape has a hell of a lot more hair, and if this is a Bigfoot, I don't know the amount of hair that they have. They could be less hairy than a great ape, and I don't know, and I don't know anybody who does know either. I mean, there's people that say they've seen one, but I haven't, so it's your word against mine. You know what I mean? So prove it to me with a picture, and I'll be more convinced. But is it a mangy chimpanzee that escaped? I don't know. But to me, like I said, that just that flappy skin, the real stiff-leggedness, and the high, like if you look at the elbow of the bear, I'm going to call it a bear, the bend is a lot higher, whereas the elbow bend on the chimp is down lower. Take it another step further. So that was a side-by-side comparison. It's convincing. I'll give it that. It does look similar. But the second picture to me does not look chimp-like. So let's take this. If you take the hair off of a chimp, there you go. No, this is not a picture of Chad that I took over spring break. This is a hairless chimp. Look at the muscle tone on this thing. That creature looks nothing like this. Even a juvenile would have better muscle tone. A juvenile, like a young chimp or great ape, would have better muscle tone. The feet on the chimp even look bigger. And again, we're going with that knuckle walk, where it's more of a bent, crooked wrist, where the other pictures, it's more of a flat front hand, like a bear paw. And when the chimp, they would also bend the paw backwards, like this guy has here. Whereas the other creature didn't really showcase that. Look at the armpit again. Like I said, it's more of a tight crook underneath the arm. The back end does not look similar at all. Like if you look where the hip is, where that doesn't have the bump at the top. I have another picture that I'll bring up. If you look at this naked bastard jumping around like a wild man, look at the armpit crook. You don't have that loose skin stretched across. You don't have the loose skin in the back legs.
You're just really fascinated with this armpit crook, aren't you?
Dude, well, think about it. It's all those pictures to me have all the hallmarks of a malnourished, mangy bear. Look at the primates. Even the healthy primates didn't have that loose skin.
Where?
In the armpit and the back legs.
Where did they not have that loose skin, Les?
Oh, in the armpit.
I think Les's contribution to Bigfoot research is going to be developing a system of armpits.
Well, you have mid-tarsal meldrum with the mid-tarsal break. I'm going to be the armpit crook kid.
Almost got me.
Almost.
Les won't believe it's a Bigfoot until he sees its armpit.
I know. I got to see the armpit. So if you guys want to convince me, get me a good pit shot of a Sasquatch. Well, Stephen asks the question, why would a monkey or chimp be so bald? I don't know what the hell was up with that one. I don't know if he had some sort of a genetic defect, because I know there was a chimp that used to be pretty popular way back in the day, where he used to smoke and stuff like that on TV. I want to say it was back in like the 50s, I think. And he was virtually hairless. So I think it was some sort of a genetic, because he was kind of outcasted. If I remember correctly, that chimp was outcasted by the other chimps at the zoo that he was born and raised at. And he was then given a human caregiver, and he was put on TV and all that stuff. And they used to get him to smoke cigarettes and all that stuff. But it's probably like the albinism. It's a recessive gene, but
Well, like an alopecia or something like that.
could
Like
be. Yeah.
my dog, Darby has
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But to me, I would I gotta go with the most reasonable explanation.
What's that?
It's a bear.
Yeah.
Because why would there be a chimpanzee? Okay. It's a bear, it's Bigfoot, or it's a chimpanzee. Okay, I think we can all agree it's not a human in a costume.
Yeah. That's definite.
So you have to go with the most reasonable explanation. The reason I don't think it's a chimp or any form of primate is we don't natively have chimps in Pennsylvania that are running wild.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a chimp or any kind of, ape of any extent, there would be stories about it. There would be more, this was a baited area looking for deer, for his hunting season.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a chimp wandering around those woods, people would have seen it. The game commission would have gotten calls about it. You would have had a history of, oh, there's a chimp that has been running around in Johnson's woods or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't, it was like I said earlier about the albino deer. You always heard those stories of albino deer, albino this, albino that. A chimp wouldn't just be wandering around the woods of Pennsylvania with the drastic weather changes that would occur in fall and winter and spring.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that eliminates chimps.
Right.
Not enough evidence of it being a juvenile Bigfoot or the existence of Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to go with it's a mangy bear. Like I got to take the most reasonable explanation, most rational piece of information we have is its armpit resembles that of a bear with mange.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just doing some searches here, and the Pittsburgh Zoo and PPG Aquarium and the Living Treasures Animal Park are really the only two zoos that came up on a search anywhere near that location. Now, it would be the Pittsburgh Zoo that would be closest. The Living Treasures is more south. There is no reports of an escaped chimpanzee from any of the zoos. And chimps are not you can't get you can't own one of them in Pennsylvania. So unless it was, a private collector that, had his own exotic pet collection that was kind of under the radar, sure, it's possible, but there were no reports of anything escaping or being found or seen in Western Pennsylvania that I was able to find.
Yeah.
Not saying it doesn't exist, but there's nothing that comes up on any searches that I've done today or in the past when we were prepping for this show. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, animals are easy to come by.
Easy enough.
Yeah, I mean, I owned an alligator.
That's true. That's true. And you bought it at the pet shop in the mall.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not exactly impossible to get, some animals that aren't exactly legal.
I'll never forget that day, too, because I was with you when you bought them.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing? You're like, fuck it. I'm buying an alligator. I was like, what?
Hey, Sully was my buddy. He only ever bit me one time.
He was a cool little alligator.
Yeah, I miss him.
Yeah, I know you do, buddy. It's okay. It's
I
okay.
always wanted to just build a house with a moat, like tropical swamp in the basement for him. Just let
Uh,
him grow until one day he decided to walk up the stairs and eat me.
yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. So I think we could kind of put the Jacob's creature photos to rest, and I'm going to say, in my opinion, for what it's worth, it was a mangy bear.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I mean, I just don't see enough counterpoints. Like I said, I've watched both ends of the spectrum kind of present their cases, and looking at it, and like I said, they make good points. They bring up certain features, but then you listen to the counterpoint and they can debunk those features, back and forth. So to me, it's like that audio I played for you earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much, distortion. There too much background interference
Mm-hmm.
for it to be evidence
Yeah.
of one or the other. But the rational thing is, okay, it is most likely a mangy bear.
Yeah. 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 And we're not saying that it's impossible for a Bigfoot to be uh to survive in Western no, they could be everywhere for all I know. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I both have found on the property that I used to live on, we both found some things that were very questionable and very
Mm-hmm.
convincing to us that, hey, maybe there is something here. I found a track of a left foot that was 15 inches long and 7.5 inches wide. I have a cast of it sitting in my garage. You found that track that was comparable but slightly smaller, bigger than our feet, but slightly smaller than the track that I had found. And at the time, I was well over 300 pounds and I couldn't make an indentation in the ground where this track was found. So whatever made it had to be heavier than me. We have a cast of that. All the sounds and stuff that I heard, and the sound that we had recorded, like there's so many things that were odd. And the fact that I had multiple people that lived around me in that area all come forward with stories makes you kind of scratch your head, you
Yeah.
know? And more people as they get to, know me and I guess their comfort level kind of gets stronger with me because I I'm very much a skeptic because I got to see it to believe it, but there's a lot of things that I've experienced and a lot of things that I have seen that make me think that it is definitely possible that a creature like a Bigfoot could survive in this area. And I've talked to a bunch of credible people in the field and shared my experiences with them, and they all say the same thing, that it seems like to them it would be, I guess, a male that's kind of just routinely scouts its territory, and when it would come through my area, because it was always around the same time of year, so it's kind of on this migratory path and probably coming down before the winter gets really bad, because I lived out where it was all kinds of farming, all kinds of stuff was grown out there, all kinds of food. And then with the ponds, there was fish. There was so much in abundance for this creature to just come right down off the mountain, take what it wanted to take, and then go back on its merry way.
Mm-hmm.
And those, if you want to see some of the pictures of that, which we got to start putting this up on our website. I'm going to try and get on that, but you could go to our sister page, the Sasquatch ATV research team on Facebook. There's a bunch of stuff that we have out there. So what are we saying Bigfoot is? Well, that is the $1 million question there, Moon Joey. My personal take on it, I think it's a relic hominid of some sort, or another evolutionary branch off of the human family tree. Not necessarily the missing link, but I just think it is another branch of great ape primate, which we are, as humans, are part of the great ape family. So
Yeah, I kind of agree with Les, except for I say it's a closer split in the time frame of splitting than further back. I say it's closer to us than
than an ape.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a little bit closer to us in the splitting and the human, family tree. I just have a feeling it's a lot closer to us in that sense
Mhm.
than further back.
Right, because most of the great apes, or even some monkeys, are have been proven that they're entering into the Stone Age. They're using stone tools to, break the husks of seeds and shells and all that kind of stuff. So they're intuitive enough to utilize things from their surroundings to help aid them in getting to the end goal, which is sustenance. I think if a Sasquatch is real, I would say that its intelligence has surpassed the rest of the great apes, and it's more in line and more closely in line with humans. Hell, they may even be past us just because we are civilized and thought to be the most advanced species on the planet. We're killing it. We're destroying the planet. We're destroying ourselves. We're going to be the end of our own demise, or the cause of it. But that's a whole other freaking topic. But I think that Sasquatch may actually be beyond us in a sense. Maybe not as technologically advanced as we are, but what's the word or I'm looking for? Like more in tuned with things than we are. Like it knows more than we give it credit for. Is what I'm getting at.
I believe it's an alien. No, I'm lying. No,
Well, there are those theories out there, Chad.
Well, yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. It's one of those things where for me, I always have to look at it, the most plausible, rational explanation. If Bigfoot does exist, the most rational thing to point to is it is somewhere in our family tree. It's some form of ape, primate, whatever you want to consider us. It's somewhere in there.
Right.
They're actually injecting human brain cells into chimps, I believe now,
Yeah.
which I think we have a series of movies that show us that is a bad idea.
Same as
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, same as bringing dinosaurs back.
Yeah. We just never learn from movies and see entertainment's a waste of your time. No, it's been showing us for years what not to do.
I think these scientists kind of live. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, I think they live by the Greyjoy motto: "What's dead will never die." They won't let anything die.
I have no clue what you just said.
I figured that. I figured that's why the joke flopped when it when it got to you.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that have never seen a single episode. I know this is the big thing on Twitter. I've never seen Game of Thrones. I legitimately have no clue anything about what you speak.
Look, what can I say? I love medieval stuff, and it's like medieval porn, so it's like the best of every world. So
yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad show or anything like that. I don't feel like wasting my time.
oh my god, I can't believe you just said that. It's not a waste of time. Once you start watching it, I'm telling you right now, once you start watching it, you're gonna be hooked. Because if you like,
ever watch Game of Thrones.
Oh, Tom, one of the comments on here, Tom says they injected donkey DNA into Trump. That's not nice. Good stuff. So, what else? Do we have anything else to go on here? I mean, that kind of wraps up what we had for the Western Pennsylvania Bigfoot.
I
Anything else from there?
actually, yeah,
Oh,
Tom actually brought up something there about, living in old mines. I mean, especially in Pennsylvania and probably like Pennsylvania, West Virginia, the coal region of America. There are so many old mine shafts, old caves, old drilling ports for mines that, yeah, I mean, easily could be living in them, venturing out when they need to. They could have several of them over their territory, in different areas, you know, different mountain chains. I mean, look at Pottsville. If you guys have ever seen Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe when he went to the underground mine in Pennsylvania, that was actually the Les. Were you born at Pottsville Hospital, Good Sam?
yes, I was.
Okay, so the town Les and I were both born in, there's a mine that goes basically under that town and out into the mountains several towns over. It was actually the mine that Mike Rowe was at during that show. I mean, that's like 100, and I think they said like 100 and some miles of, mining operation under the towns and stuff like that. So you could have, an extensive mine system that, basically shut down years ago. They really never closed them off. Once they ran dry, they just moved the equipment. I mean, even some of the equipment was left behind. Like you'll see sometimes when you drive around in the mountains, you'll find old bulldozers, shovels, breaker equipment and stuff like that, just rotting out in the middle of the mountain. No roads leading up to it, but it's there. There might have been a road there 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely a possibility they could be living in the, mine systems, old caves. To me, I mean, if I was going to live in the woods, that's what I would be looking for.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
sort of permanent shelter or
Yeah.
real.
Climate controlled.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
What was that show that you introduced me to a while back? It was with those creatures or something down south in the
Oh,
caves.
Heller.
Yeah. Well, they
Yeah.
were saying in there too that people were saying Bigfoot and other kind of goblin-y looking creatures were.
Well, that mammoth, I think it's Mammoth Caves down there in Kentucky or wherever they were.
Yeah.
That like covers like half the state of Kentucky, like that cave system. So there's, would be perfect for something that would be, kind of living off in the mountains in the woods. There's miles and miles of cave that nobody ever ventures down. Here in Virginia, when you start coming down 81, you see all the signs like Luray Caverns, the endless caves and stuff like that. They go on, a good distance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you never know where the outlets actually are on some of them. Some of them, it's like, oh, we've known about this cave for 200 years now, but we've only ever found like one or two areas that come out somewhere, but there's still cave system, parts of the cave system we haven't gotten through yet.
Right. So, I mean, there are tons of man-made and natural resources for these creatures to, survive and live and thrive in. Where I used to live on top of the Broad Mountain, there was all sorts of, because Pennsylvania is littered with glacier deposits on top of the mountains, where these huge glacier stones during the time of the Ice Age, when the glacier rolled through, it deposited all these huge, I don't even know what mineral they are. They're not granite. I don't know, whatever they are, they're just huge deposits of rock, and they're massive. Some of them are as big as houses, and they're all kind of clumped together. They all have these little crevasses and overhangs and caves and all kinds of beautiful shelters and bear utilize them. You know what I mean? So why couldn't a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch? So I'm just saying there's tons of possibility. And one of the funny things is the farm that I used to live on, during the winter, I found these uh huge poops that were down by the ponds, and this was well into the winter, kind of getting closer to spring. I want to say it was like February, March, somewhere around there. It was still really cold. Nothing was in bloom. Nothing was around, but there was 2 or 3 piles. Well, I don't want to say piles, logs of feces that was nothing but blueberries, just chewed up and whole blueberries. And
I'm sorry.
again, you're crapping around my property.
Yes, I gotta mark my territory.
That's right. That's right. But it kind of made me think, like, okay, was it somebody? Because people used to walk their dogs and stuff down there. So did somebody's dog like get a hold of their blueberry bin when they brought their groceries home and they took it down there for a run and it crapped out these blueberry logs? Sure, possible. But it also makes me think, if it were a Bigfoot and not a human, because it was like a human like log. Do they have the ability to store food like squirrels and everything? Like, do they find little areas where they're able to, you know, pick berries throughout the summer season and then deposit them for, winter foraging and winter storage?
That's where all my lost Tupperware goes.
Yeah, that's right. Bigfoot takes it all to store
Yeah.
blueberries.
Yeah, that explains a lot of my missing Tupperware. I'm gonna have to use that next time my wife asks me where I left it.
Yeah,
Just blame Bigfoot.
That, along with the matching socks. You know what I mean? Where's the other sock?
Yeah, I don't own matching socks anymore.
Bigfoot has sock envy. So, but anyway, I think that kind of concludes our show for tonight. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I think we kind of covered the some stories out there in Western Pennsylvania, and these are a small sample size of some of the stuff out there. I mean, Western Pennsylvania is some very thick, dense woods, much like Eastern Pennsylvania. You got miles upon miles of just woods that people don't go to, like haven't been through in years. And so you definitely have an environment where something could be living pretty much unmolested by humankind, or very molested by humankind, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like it was just an interesting area. And some of like the earlier stories that kind of combine these, UFO Bigfoot crossover, things. Like I said earlier, it's a UFO. It doesn't mean it was an alien spaceship. It could have been many things that people back in the 70s just didn't have knowledge of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how old are drones? We only know of them in the last couple of years, but there's been flying airplane models since probably the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to say that it wasn't a early version of the drone hovering with a light on it. The one the story where it was carrying a light, a glowing orb. Is that some kind of bioluminescence? Green at night during the Civil War because there was some kind of bioluminescent fungus. So that could explain some of that. But yeah, it's been definitely an interesting, subject to look into and talk about. And, gladly anybody has anything, you can always comment or send us emails or encounters@explorersgroup.com. You can email us. Les will promise to check it like once a millennia.
Yeah, that's true.
He randomly sends me an email. He's like, "Hey, I wanted to show you this.
We got it a month ago."
Yeah.
I just saw it.
I just opened the email today. Yeah, Les, that's dated a month ago.
I try, but we do have a couple of questions in the comments that I want to get to before we wrap this up. Steve, we try and do a weekly show, although depending on our schedules, it's not always It's not always every week, but we're trying to get back into the weekly show. But we always try and put out a notification before we go live. So just keep your actually just like our page and follow us, and then you'll get the notifications when we go live, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you could hit the notification bell, and every time we upload a new video or a new show, you'll be able to see it. But we're always live on Facebook, so if you want to interact with us, you're going to have to watch us on Facebook. It's just the way it goes right now. And there's another Piney says, any cases of where Bigfoot are being invisible? I've never had any reports come in. Now, I am the Eastern coordinator of what used to be the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. It's now the Keystone Bigfoot Project. We get a lot of reports that come in. I have not gotten any in Pennsylvania where a Bigfoot had vanished. Now, there might be some archive reports. I don't know. I haven't read all of them, but I haven't. There are a lot of reports or a lot of people that claim they do vanish or disappear, because sometimes people will be following trackways and all of a sudden it'll go to the middle of nowhere and just stop. Just stop. No more tracks. And there's no way it could have been faked or hoaxed or whatever. So people do think that they either disappear or they travel interdimensionally. But Bigfoot's an aliens, Bigfoot dimensional traveler, time traveler. I don't like to pollute one mystery with another. I try and keep it more towards the it's a flesh and blood creature, not some sort of interdimensional time traveling thing.
And yet we research the paranormal and we just exclude all possible paranormal ends on Bigfoot. Well,
yeah.
I would like to believe it's more of a flesh and blood creature. So therefore, looking at some of this stuff, I look more towards those stories. But yeah, there is plenty of information out there with, disappearing Bigfoot, vanishing, interdimensional type stuff. And, none of us really know. I mean, they could really be, paranormal, when you look at ghost, research and stuff like that. It could be intersecting timelines. It could be interdimensional, rifts that open and, we see into a different time that's happening on the same line as ours. It's just, we're seeing, 1863 at Gettysburg. They're maybe seeing the future,
Yeah, you never know. We never know until we know. That's the thing. But I mean, based off of what's known, I would say it's most likely a flesh and blood creature. But to Chad's point is, you never really know, because there is a lot of crazy shit out there, But I do like the one comment Tom made
about my Tupperware and the fireflies.
Tupperware with fireflies. I like that. Yeah. Good one.
That's a reasonable explanation for the glowing object. See?
Yeah. And Tom, feel free to send Chad and I those photographs. Either send it, PM us on Facebook, or you could email it at encounters@explorersgroup.com, and I'll get to it next month or two when I check that email. Or just message us. If you do email it to that email address, just message us and just say, hey, I sent you guys something. We'll check it out. And I'd love to see it. Yeah. And if you want to talk to us, just reach out. You can contact us at our website at www.explorersgroup.com. You can get to us on the contacts page. Or contact us page. We are on Twitter at Explorers Group, on Facebook, facebook.com/Explorers Group. And we're on Instagram.
Back what?
Back Explorers Group. We're on all that. And again, you can reach us on iTunes. Just search Explorers Seekers of the Truth. You'll find us there. Please give us a positive review and help us get to that goal where we're easily searched. If you just put in Sasquatch or ghosts or whatever, and then we pop up with all the other podcasts out there, you'd be doing us a big favor. Check us out on YouTube. Like I said, you could get to our YouTube channel, whatever it is. If you go to our website, www.explorersgroup.com, click on the live show. Any one of those archive shows will take you directly to our YouTube link, and you could subscribe and hit the notification. So other than that, Chad, it was an awesome show. Thanks for putting this stuff together. And
Oh, before you completely like kick us all out of here. I'm thinking next week we're probably going to discuss a book I bought this week on the ghost of St. Augustine, Florida.
Mhm.
It's actually a pretty interesting book. I've got a little bit into it, and being that it is the oldest continuously inhabited European development in the New World, it has a ton of history. So it's definitely kind of something I'd want to cover. So we're going to be doing maybe a little more paranormal next week, and then we're still working on the whole Bigfoot UFO connection, kind of trying to flesh out something that isn't one story and we're just beating it to death. So next week should be a paranormal episode, and just remember we do cover a little bit of everything. So if paranormal's not your cup of tea, you don't have to listen. If you might hear something that sparks your interest.
Yeah.
If paranormal is your cup of tea and Bigfoot isn't, you don't have to listen. I mean, but if you do, you might again hear something that sparks your interest, or at least give you a little bit more knowledge on the subject. It might, something you hear may kind of open up your mind to a different theory or idea.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, guys. Hopefully we'll see you next week, providing that Chad and I could get our schedules coordinated. And if not, we'll definitely try and get the next show in as soon as humanly possible. So thank you all for tuning in. And we wish you all a good night.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.